Hello everyone, my name is Amy and I am the Black Cat Stitcher here on YouTube and on Instagram. And this is my Flosstube where I talk about all of my various crafting things and where I talk about my other hobby, which is reading. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Yeah, it's been a while since I've filmed a Flosstube. I skipped filming for the month of November. Essentially, I was in the middle of the interview process for a job, and that would have, gotten me, if I had gotten the job, I would have been moving to a entirely different state. But, unfortunately, that didn't work out and I wasn't offered the position. But I was, if everything had gone, in my favor and I had gotten the position, November would have been very busy, and maybe even the beginning of December with me moving to an entirely different state. So I was anticipating potentially having, no time at all to breathe, let alone film a Flosstube. So I decided that I would wait until, December to film my monthly update for cross stitch and all of my other crafty things, which means I have a lot of things to talk about because November was very busy with cross stitch and not with moving, unfortunately. But let's start, I suppose, with my knitting. Okay, for my knitting project, I had said in my October video that I was planning on attempting to catch up to where I was. And from that point forward, I was going to continue by adding a stripe to the blanket per month, which I have done and exceeded, I suppose. But I have this folded in half at the moment. But this is where I'm at. Pardon all the string hanging off the end here. It looks kind of messy. But I'm a little tangled and I'm not gonna bother too much with it. But yeah, this is where I'm at. I had in October completed the black stripe, but in order to catch up to where I was, I would have had to complete the gray and the white stripe. And then for the month of October, I would have had to complete the brown stripe. The yellow stripe is for the month of November. And then obviously I did two more after that, December, and this is January. Because essentially what I found myself doing is on days that I was, cross-stitching a lot, like on my weekend days, eventually my eyes got tired and then I would just pick this up and work on this instead. So I got a lot of progress on this. But here is the next stripe color, back to another tannish brown. But I suppose I will tell you the yarn names for all of the stripes. The black stripe is just called black. The gray is smoky quartz. The white is moonstone. The brown is boulder opal. The yellow here is yellow jasper. This other brown is brown agate. And then this reddish orange is called Nile. And the one that I'm working on now is called Murray. But yeah, I'm gonna keep plugging away at this, and I will be getting at least a stripe per month. I'm not entirely sure I'm going to pick this up during the month of December very often, because as of filming right now, I am T-minus 2 weeks until I jump on an airplane and go home for the 2-week holiday vacation. Because that's what I do. I save all of my vacation and I use it all at the end of the year for the month of December. Unless I have plans to, travel to another country or something, and do a big vacation that I've saved up for, because someday I plan and hope that I'll be able to do that. Except, I don't have the money currently. Hi, Kiss. I'm gonna put this over here so you can protect it. All right. How to cross stitch. In the month of October, I was focusing on my mom's future Christmas gift, and seeing, essentially how far I could get on that. So Mom, it's time for you to walk away. Sorry, but I'll let you know when you can come back. Anywho, here is a photograph of what that project is going to look like. And I hope I had a before picture, but it's been a while. I might have accidentally deleted it, but if I do have it, it will be over here. But I think I made quite a bit of progress on this as well. So, sorry, I'm untangling something. But here is where I'm at now. I believe, to give some context, that at the beginning or at the end of October, I was still up here somewhere, and I had a little bit left to fill into these flower petals at the top here. And then, during my time, I finished that and then moved down and did all of this. Oh wait, no, I moved over and I completed the border because my Q-snap doesn't quite fit all of this in one. But then I moved down and I did this. And as you can see, I only have a little bit left to go. Whoops. You can also see the giant stain, which I'll cover with my hand. Because I think pretty much after I finish this flower, there's just like a little bit of stem to finish before it is done. So I'm so close. But I had to put that away because during the month of November, I also said that I was planning on finishing my Whip Go goals, but also putting this aside for the year because my mom was coming to visit for Thanksgiving, and I didn't want my focus project for the month of November to be, something that she couldn't see or would get her, gift spoiled for her. So I put this away at the end of October, and I first started out with my November Whip Go goals that were called for the month of November. Now the first one for the month of November was also a part of the things that my mom can't see, because this is the other gift, the gift for my aunt that is from the same collection of things. Here is the picture again. Oh, I forgot to say, these are by Whoopie Cat on Etsy. They are, I guess, Art Deco flowers, originally illustrated by Mary Golay, and charted for cross stitch by Annette Swartzmiller. And there's a pack of 8 that I bought, and I plan to do quite a few of them, and I'll further explain that in the plans section Sorry, I'm trying to prevent a cat from knocking over my stack. So, he might make an appearance. He might not. We'll see what he does. Anyway, my whip go goal for November, my first one, was to do 1,000 stitches on my aunt's gift, which is the Crown Imperial one in this photograph. It's basically the spiky red one, if you were wondering. And again, I might have a before, I might have already deleted it, but if so, here's the before. All right, and here is where I am now. For the before, if it's not there, I can say that, whoops, this is, yeah, this is the right direction. I had this little blue border and these, you know, brown flower looking things in the corner here. So what I did was I finished the rest of the brown little flower doodads in my Q-snap. And there was a little bit more of that color down here, which I counted once, twice, thrice, you know the deal, because it was a big jump. But I finished that one, that little bit as well, and then I picked up the yellow, and I started filling in, and reached my 1,000 stitches over here, and then put that away as well. So that was my first goal completed for the month of November. And my second goal for the month of November was to do 1,000 stitches. Oh, you can come back now, Mom. Sorry. It was to do 1,000 stitches on this project. This is called Watercolor City. And here is potentially a before, but also maybe I deleted it. Who knows? But it's kind of hard to tell that I made any progress at all. But this is where I'm at now. Move the needle minder down here. Essentially, I believe what I did my 1,000 on was filling in some more of this pinkish cloud up here. Because I believe this whole deal was empty. And, you know, this one as well, but I've completed filling in this little thing and part of that, as well as, you know, some other progress down here because I'm a color completer within the Q-snap, so I do cross-country stitching. And as you can tell, I had been doing this in the diagonal, but I've abandoned that, and it's now the way it is. But that is where I got on that project and completed my whip go goal. So then, as I explained in my previous video, which seems to be so long ago, gosh, November was crazy. But anyway, I said that I was going to spin my wheel of decisions, my tiny wheel of decisions, and I was going to pick a project and do that as my focus. And I also said that I was going to do it live on video, which obviously didn't happen. But I do have a screenshot of my, I guess, so the selection. And you can see that the selection is smalls. Now, for me, that means that I had bought a plethora of, you know, less than 100, or, you know, just maybe barely 100 by 100 projects that I bought at the Stitchery Nook in Osage, Iowa last Christmas time, when I was back home visiting my family. And I planned to start and finish those on my scraps from my other projects that I finished. And, well, with one exception. There is a project that I didn't buy from the Stitchery Nook, but I'll point that out when I get there. But I was going to start and finish those on my scraps from other projects, and you know, be frugal and hopefully, you know, fit a project on those scraps. So the one that I had been working on at the end of October was this project. This is Mill Hill Alley Cat series, and this guy's name is Ashes. And for this one, I believe I might have a before picture. Again, maybe I deleted it. But here is where I'm now. I finished it. And for the occasion that I do not have a picture for before, essentially I had finished these bottom bordered triangles, like that much of the cat, but I had also outlined the rest of, you know, the hump there of the cat, and I was doing the fill-in. But I finished the cat and the tail and brought it up to the top two borders and finished the beading. God, I have to say, the beading for this was a pain. I think I've figured out a strategy for my beading, because essentially what I had done, I had done the beading in this bottom corner, realized that my Q-snap was gonna crush it if I, you know, did all the beading at once or as I went. So I stopped and, you know, finished all the crosses. And by the time I had gotten back to the beading part, like, there's a diagonal of beads here. Part of this had fallen out because, you know, my, you know, beading thread had gotten untucked and unthreaded or whatever, and it just started slowly unraveling. So basically I had to start over with the beading. I tore most of it out and started over. So I think the trick for this, because my beading thread is kind of slippery. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, it's kind of slippery. It's this Wonder Invisible thread that I had found on 123 Stitch, and I don't know, it feels like fishing line essentially, except way skinnier. So yeah, it's very slippery. So I have to be very, very certain that I've tucked it under plenty of thread so it won't, you know, come untucked and, you know, start to unravel my beading. But anyway, then that took me about 2 days, to be honest, because I was so close, and, you know, I had started working on this on one of my days off, so I had like solid, you know, 6 to 8 hours of stitching per day. Then started the month of the SAF, which for those who, you know, are just starting cross-stitching means start and finish. So my next new start was Kitties in the Round by JBW Designs, which is one of the ones that I had bought in Osage at the Stitchery Nook. And my plan was for this one was to use some of the leftover anchor thread, which come in various shades of brown and gray, from one of my previous projects called Shy Kitty. I finished that, gosh, a couple months ago, so you can look at my previous videos to see the complete, you know, completed project. But yeah, the first step for me was I took a scrap and I dyed it with pink with my Rit dye, just because I just didn't want it to be white. And, you know, I also had another thing that I have for my plans that I wanted to dye pink, so I took a couple of the scraps, you know, and dyed them pink as well, just so I could, you know, make it a little bit more interesting than just white Ada. But anyway, here is my finish on Kitties in the Round. What I did was I selected like a color of the brown for each cat, and I just did each cat. And then I selected like an olive foresty green, I think it's more of olive green, to do the you know, the flowers and the other decorative bits in between the kitties. So yeah, I don't know about the choice of pink fabric, but that's the only color of Rit dye that I have. So it's pink, y'all. But yeah, that is my finish on Kitties in the Round by JBW Designs. And then I picked up another project, the one project that I didn't buy at Stitchery, Nook. It is this design. It is In This House by Nova Stitches. And I believe I explained earlier the general plan for this is that I'm going to make each motif its own little thing, and I guess make it into a flat fold or something. I'm gonna make it pretty somehow, but you know, I haven't decided exactly how yet. But I also wanted to continue to add to this as my world changes and as, you know, political issues that, or, you know, human rights issues that I am passionate about come up. So I have wanted to add, you know, since I bought this project, I had wanted to add three things. One was Stand with Ukraine, because, you know, the war against Ukraine was started by Russia during my, you know, stitching career, I guess. And I also wanted to add a uterus or a vagina or something like that to represent the overturning of Roe versus Wade, which sucks, but it happened. And then lastly, I wanted to add something to do with trans rights, because I believe there was the issue with the Texas governor, like, writing a letter to social services about saying that supporting trans kids was child abuse or something along that lines. It's been a while since I made that decision, but because I bought this a long time ago and didn't start it for a very long time. But I did start and finish this one as well. So in my quest to figure out how I was going to add some of those things, I went on search for another pattern that contained, you know, a female reproductive organ that I could use to copy, essentially, because I don't trust myself that far. I mean, in terms of the Stand with Ukraine and the trans rights one, there I was planning on, you know, doing a flag, which is a rectangle essentially, and I thought that I could figure that and design it on my own if I really wanted to. And I did for the Stand with Ukraine one. But in the process, I found a second pattern that was released by Nova's Creations, which is the designer of the product, or the pattern that I had bought before. That was another In This House pattern, but it had added something about reproductive rights as well as trans rights, and there was a couple other motifs that I picked from that one, or did, you know, used from that one because the sentiment I liked. And I will point those out as I go. So what I started with is the Black Lives Matter motif. And then I did the Stand with Ukraine one because I wanted to, you know, be able to do it side by side with this one, just so that I got the sizing similar. Then I went on to the Science is Real motif. And then this is from that second pattern. All bodies are beautiful. And so I stopped here because I was worried that it was getting skinnier, this little scrap. So I picked up a second scrap, but, you know, these I came back to do later. And Kindness is Everything. This is also from that second pattern. I just liked the motif better that they used for Kindness is Everything on that second pattern. So I chose this one. Oh, and I did make a modification. I left the heart blank. It was filled in with a different shade of red, but I just left it open like that because I thought it was prettier. And that one is that. And then I got a bigger scrap and I kept going. In this house, we believe. And then this is the feminism is everything, is for everyone. No human is illegal. I am not super certain about this motif. Maybe someday I will do some research, and when I'm more confident in my, creative abilities when it comes to cross stitch, I might change it to the logo of some sort of, immigration rights group, nonprofit that I could put it in there. And then reproductive rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. Gender is a spectrum, and love is love. So I don't know exactly how I'm going to finish these. I'm a little bit concerned because I'm very close to the edge. I kind of lived wildly, trying to fit these all on my scraps. But I don't believe that for flat folds and such, you need a lot of border. Especially if I plan on using the Magic Hat hot glue gun. And in my future plans, I plan on taking up quilting. I actually bought a quilt kit, which I forgot to grab and is way the hell over there. I bought a quilt kit at my local quilt store as my first attempt at a quilt. It was expensive, y'all, which I should have expected because, but I didn't expect exactly how much it was. But I supported a local business, even if it hurt if it hurt seeing the price tag, Anyway, that I started and finished. And then I picked up Le Chat Noir French Country Black Cat by JBW Designs, which is another one of those smalls that I had bought at the Stitchery Nook. And here is that. So again, the concept was using my old anchor threads. So I picked a dark purple and a grayish purple. Well, the grayish purple was kind of a secondary thought. I had intended to do the entire thing in this dark purple, but I quickly ran out of thread. So I picked up the dark grayish purple, or the grayish purple here, and did all the motifs in that color, which, meh. I wish I could have all done it all in the dark purple, but such is life. Also on this, in the front, or the kitties in the round one, there's a second kitty that's just, a tiny little cat that you could do, which I did in this silver color on the top of this scrap of fabric. I don't really have plans to finish those two, but we'll see. Maybe someday I'll learn how to sew and be creative and do some sort of cool little finish with that. And then next, it is Diamonds Celtic series by Frotty Richer Designs. Now in the model that is photographed on the front, this has Krynic and beads, which I only own a singular type of Krynic that is left over from a Mill Hill kit. And I have very few beads. So I just substituted them for floss. But yeah, this is what it looks like. Now for this one was a pain in the ass, because you would think that it is a pretty symmetrical design, but it ain't. It's not. So yeah, she took me a bit because I kept messing up the the outline stuff, and because it's not quite symmetrical. And that frustrated me to no end. So I put it, essentially, I actually started this project before I did the Black Cat Country, Black Country Cat or something like that from JBW Designs. But I threw it aside in frustration and picked it up and finished it after I finished the Black Country Cat from JBW Designs. So, last but not least, the end of November, I actually haven't shown you this yet. It's a new stash acquisition. This is Plum Street Samplers Tired Trio. I bought this at the Crazy Woman Mercantile in Gillette, Wyoming, which is a, I guess, novelty shop that also has cross stitch in the back. So I bought a couple of patterns from there, and this is one of them. And I started this on a scrap of blue 16 count Aida. The others are all white 14 count that I may or may not have dyed, but this is 16 count. So I'm so close with this, but then November ran out and I started my whip goal things for the month of December. The only change is the flowers. The little gray bits that are in the center of the flowers, I messed up and I read the pattern wrong. It's supposed to be a creamy white color, but I read the pattern wrong and it's gray, and I really could have cared less. By the time I noticed, you know, it was, you know, all the way down here, and I was like, don't care. I'm not gonna go back and change it. But anyway, I like him. I think they're so cute. The only complaint is, I suppose, just has to do with my skills, and not with the pattern itself. But I didn't know that the faces of the this is originally, excuse me, done on a linen. So the faces have some, the majority of it's an over 2, but the faces have some over 1 stitches, which for Aida means piercing the cloth. So if you look really close at their faces, they look a little weird because I've never done the piercing of the Aida before. So they do look a little strange if you look really close, but from far away they look pretty, and that's what matters. So I will put away the smalls category. And I guess if I ever pick up my smalls again in the future, I will obviously finish this one. And I have one more pattern that I bought from the Crazy Woman Mercantile that I'll do. And then from there, honestly, I'll probably go to small-ish patterns. Because the rest of the patterns that I own in my stash are not small. Or not, yeah, very small, I guess. So, there's that. And then came Whip Go for the month of December. So my final 2 2022 goals. One was a finish on one of my seasonal trees, which is a set of 4 patterns that I finished quite early at the beginning of this year. So I had already crossed that one off my whip goals. And the second was start and do 1,000 stitches on this pattern. This is Horse. That is the name of the pattern by Light Unicorn Designs on Etsy. And the goal was to do 1,000 stitches on a new start for this. And here is where I'm at. This is way more than 1,000 stitches, obviously. So what happened was I did my 1,000 stitches, and then I started watching Jen Lee Quirks and Stitches on Flosstube, and she is the creator of 24 Hours of Cross Stitch. And apart from the 24-hour marathon weekends that go on as a part of that group, they also do monthly acrostics, which essentially you try to fit projects in your collection, set some sort of challenge for yourself, and complete the, I guess, phrase by connecting your projects to each letter that you do, that you have. And I started using this project to do the December acrostic for 24 Hours of Stitching Facebook group, which is gift your stitches is the phrase. So G I set as gray, the word gray. And there's kind of like a grayish shadow up here at the top of the horse. And what I wanted to do was work one night on the gray shadow, which I did. And then I completed that one as well. I said indigo, which is a color of purple. And there's kind of like a purple shadow in this dude's face here. And so I said work one night on the purple shadow. Which I did, and there's 2 eyes in that phrase, so I did both of the eyes. I worked 2 nights on the purple shadow, essentially color completing 2 different shades of purple within the shadow. You can only really see on camera the darker shade, but there's another lighter shade of purple in there as well. But anyway, I'm gonna keep going. Oh yeah, and I did F, which I did Frisian, which is a breed of horse. And the goal was to work one night on this. So essentially, I am doing the acrostic, and I was trying to be creative and fit them all to this project and see if I could do it. And I did. I'm being successful so far. Because I do want to focus on this project for the month of December. Because I made the mistake of setting a new start in my whip goal, and also, unlucky enough to, wait the entire freaking year on a project that I really kind of wanted to do because of whip go. So I probably, from this point forward, I won't be adding new starts to my whip go. I'll just do them if I want to. Well, I'll still keep doing the new start as a reward for a finish that on whip go, but no, I just won't do straight up new starts. Also, I forgot, this is fabric. It's vintage smoky quartz or something like that from Vintage Needle Arts fabric, hand dyed. So yeah, I'm going to keep working on the horse for the rest of the month of December. Also, for the month of December, I have to plan on what I'm going to pack in my suitcase and bring to the airport and home with me. So my plans for that is there isn't very many colors in the horse pattern. There's like 6 or 7, maybe 8. I haven't counted it, but it's not a very long list. So I think I'm going to bring the horse with me. And that will be my focus, I suppose. But I do get a lot of stitching time at home, except for really Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, which is filled with cooking and family. I'm stitching pretty much the whole time because, I don't really have to go anywhere or do anything, except for maybe small, day trips here and there. But I'm planning on bringing that, but I think that's not going to be enough. So I'm also going to bring Haunted Welcome, which is mostly monochromatic. And I'll just work on the black 310 if I end up finishing horse, or getting bored of horse, which is honestly the more likely scenario. And then I'm also going to bring the materials for a New Year, New Start, which I will be starting on November or January 1st, because I will be home on January 1st. And I'm going to be starting Move Forward in Love Sal 2022. I know I'm late. I bought this with the intention of starting this during Stitch for Pride 2022, started by Dee's 20 Stitches. But I decided against it. Essentially what I did for Pride Stitch for Pride 2022 was I followed the informational, daily informational things that they posted on the spreadsheet, and learned, every day during Pride about those people or those subjects or topics that Dee had curated for us. But they also had, daily prompts that, were related to that subject or topic, like, stitch on a bird or stitch on a LGBTQ plus designer. And that Move Forward in Pride, or in Love Sal, was going to be my stitch on a LGBTQ plus designer project. But when I was looking into it and, thinking forward, for that month, I realized, like, I really don't have very many whips, and I really don't have projects that I am creative enough to, fit into these prompts and do the daily stitching on them. So I decided to continue to focus on my mom's gift project, or no, that was before that. I was focusing on my dad's Star Wars project at that time. But I decided to follow the educational stuff, and because of lack of creativity, I suppose, I wasn't able to really fit some of my projects into, some of the stitching, part of that monthly challenge. But I did learn a lot, and I'm glad that I learned through the educational portion. But at the same time, maybe moving forward, like I said, I'm trying the acrostics for 24 hours out. To try and see how creative I can be to manipulate it enough that I can fit, my smaller amount of projects. I mean, some people might not think it's a small amount. I mean, I think I have like 14 projects, which for some people may be a lot, but a lot of the people that I watch on Flosstube have like 50, 60, a lot of projects, and they have a lot of variety. So, I'm trying to work it out and start trying to, do the acrostics. And then, maybe next year I can, when a monthly, challenge, pops up that somebody on Flosstube creates, I can wrap my mind around it and be able to fit my projects in. It may be slightly far-fetched, but I will do it. Anyway, so that's my plan for travel in December. So now, I guess I want to talk about 2023 Whip Go plans. Now, like I said, I have 14 projects. And I've selected 2 that I'm going to focus on a finish for the year of 2023. I'm not guaranteeing that I will finish both of them, but I do want to try. The rest of my goals, I have a couple of page finish goals. I have my Heaven and Earth designs. I have a page finish goal for that, and I have a page finish goal for this one, the Watercolor City, but that's really only because it's just so freaking close to a page finish that I think I can do it. But the rest of my goals are do 1,000 stitches on all of my whips, which is works in progress. For those of you who don't quite yet know all of the acronyms and whatnot. Works in progress, I'm going to do 1,000 stitches, and each of those 14 projects I'm going to pick up and touch twice. with the exception, like I said, of my focus on a finish and my page finish goals. Now for the focus on a finish, I'm going to be doing my mom's and my aunt's gift project. The first focus is my mom's. I'm so close. I focused a lot on the last couple months of 2022 on that, and I made a lot of progress. So I'm going to pick that up and hopefully finish it within the next couple months of 2023. But I'm not going to pick it up again until I get back from vacation in January. And then I'm going to pick up my aunt's and focus on a finish for that. Now, when I have a focus on a finish project for my whip go board, I do give myself a reward with a new start. Now, this year's new starts aren't going to be super exciting. 2023, I'm going to, when I finish my mom's project, I'm going to pick up another one of those flowers and start it for myself. And I believe I've decided that I'm going to do the tiger lily, which in the photograph is the pink and green one. And then when I finish my aunt's, I'm going to start a fourth flower. And that, well, I had the idea that I would give a flower, to each of the women in my family. Minus my grandmother, because I don't think she will like them. I have already cross-stitched her a gift for this December, which is the little snowman that I showed you. Gosh, it's been forever now, but I've showed you the finish on that. But I will do a short Flossmas thing during Christmas, because I'm going to show you all the frame stuff, but I can't do it now because they're finished, but they're at my mom's house because, that's where the gifts are going to be given. So I figured she shouldn't try to send them back to me all the way out here in my Wyoming. So they're still in Iowa, and they'll probably remain in Iowa. But I will promise I will show them to you after the gift giving has been completed, so that you can see the finished products on those. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. All of the women in my family are going to get a flower except for my grandma, because I don't think that's her aesthetic, and I don't think she would particularly enjoy it. So I'm not gonna, do one for her. I mean, I may be wrong. I'll possibly, gauge her response to my aunts and my moms when I give them, and see if she thinks, differently than what I expect about them. But that's a future me problem. But anyway, there is my aunt, my mom, myself, and I also have my brother's girlfriend. They recently moved in together, and they are pretty serious about their relationship, I think. Maybe. But, I mean, even if this isn't the one and they don't end up getting married, my brother, is a straight man, and he will hopefully someday get married to another girl, even if it's not this girl. Although, secretly, I'm hoping it is this girl, but, that's not my choice. But anyway, I'm going to start another one that would be given to the future wife of my brother. And then maybe I'll do another, keep going with those patterns, and, if my brother has daughters, or if I have daughters, or, vice versa, I'll keep giving out the flowers to the women of the family. So, as decorative pieces that, are a family piece that they can enjoy. But anyway, yeah, that's the plan. I'm going to start 2 more flowers, one for the future wife of my brother and one for myself. But yeah, it'll be, I'm not going to necessarily focus on that one for a finish for my brother's project or for my project, because I don't believe my brother has any plans of getting married anytime soon. Not that he shares that information with me, but, I don't think he does. But when he does announce his engagement, I will focus on a finish. and hopefully give it to his wife as a wedding gift. But who freaking knows when that's gonna happen? So, and plus, the one for myself, I don't particularly care how long it takes me to do, because, I do cross stitch for the enjoyment of it. I don't necessarily, and I have a lot of BAPs, which is big ass projects. That's the acronym. But yeah, and so obviously I don't give a two hoots about how long it's gonna take me, because most of mine are thousands of stitches by thousands of stitches. Anyway, so those are my 2022 WIP goals. I'll recap just to be succinct. I have 2 focuses on a finish, which is the flowers that I'm giving to my aunt and to my mom, and my reward new start for those are more flowers. I have 1,000 stitches on all of my WIPs, and I'm going to be picking up those twice within the year to do the 1,000 stitches. And then I also have page finishes on 2 projects, which is my museum shelf Heaven and Earth Designs by Amy Stewart, and my watercolor city that I just showed you. All right, I think that wraps up the cross stitch portion. Now going forward, I'm going to talk about brain fart. Reading. Yeah, that's the word. English, yes. It's really early in the morning, y'all, so my brain hasn't completely aligned itself with the thought of being awake. Anyway, yes, reading. I didn't honestly read all that much. In October, I don't even really remember what we read in October. Or what I read in October. But in November, I read The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, because that was a part of the book club selection for the month of November. And I suppose for me, classic novels are a toss-up. The only ones that I've ever really liked in my life are Of Mice and Men, which I read in high school for one of my English assignments. And gosh, what was the title of that? The War of Two Worlds, I think it was, the one with the alien invasion. Anyway, I'll put the book covers up here so you'll actually know what the heck I'm talking about. Those 2 I liked. But most other classic novels that I've read, I frankly don't like them very much. But I was in that category, I think, for The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I didn't quite understand the point of the story at first, but I read, I was read by somebody else, because I was having a discussion with somebody about this book. I was read this book, or this, afterward by, the person was my mom, because we were reading it together, that she had in her physical copy, but I didn't have in my audio book. But basically the afterword was written by probably a professor of literature of some sort, and basically explained the point of the book, which made it make a lot more sense, and made me appreciate it a little bit more. But during reading it, honestly. The story or the word, when you read Shakespeare, I apologize to y'all Shakespearean lovers out there, but when you read Shakespeare, the way he writes is frustrating, and the words that he uses is, obviously, he was born in Old England, and he uses, the way that he writes is odd compared to the way us modern English speakers talk or write. So I don't like Shakespeare as a result of that. I just can't connect with his style of writing, and all that jazz. So the writing style was, you could still tell that there was some, older flair to it, but it was more understandable and more, modern use of the words of the English language. I don't know if that makes sense to any of y'all, but hopefully it does. It made sense in my mind. So that was good, and I liked that, but goodness, my brain is ceasing to function at this moment. What was I saying? But like I said, during the course of reading it, it it was basically the story of Dorian Gray's narcissism, or his soul being corrupted over time. And I once it got to the end, I was like, okay, yeah, there has to be some sort of point to that, besides the fact that all of these things can corrupt some people, which is obvious. Drugs, murder, and sleeping around, I guess. Those things are commonly considered to be things that corrupt your soul, in the Christian religion. But yeah, the afterwards that my mom read to me that was in the back of her book gave me a little bit more historical context. And, it kind of picked apart the novel a little bit more so that I could see, he was relating the book to art. It's been a while since I read it, so I probably couldn't give you a very eloquent or concise summary of what that afterwards said, but basically it had to do with art and morality. And because Oscar Wilde, I believe, in his lifetime was a big part of the Impressionist painting, movement, and I mean, I don't know much about art or art movements or, art styles over time and their correlation with the history that's going around in the world, at the time that those, periods of art are happening. So that was something new that I learned, and that was fun. But I was supposed to be reading currently. I haven't yet picked it up just because November's been hectic. But I finished Oscar Wilde really, within the first week of November because that was a short book. But I was supposed to then pick up the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde book. But I haven't. I will, now that I remember that I have to do that. Well, I don't have to do anything, honestly, but I do want to read this one because, Sweeney Todd, the musical, is kind of, I think, based on Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I've always kind of wanted to read this classic novel, and we'll see. So, this again is another short novel, so, and then going forward in December, I probably am not going to read a whole lot. Because, when I go home on Christmas vacation, instead of ignoring people and reading, I tend to get involved in board games or other sorts of other, things, watching TV shows while stitching with family members. Because, one thing that my mom and I do enjoy doing together, she always tapes the lighting of the Rockefeller Christmas tree, and we watch that, back together. Yeah, I think that's all I have to talk about, to be honest. Should I show you my quilting kit that I bought? Because I don't know if I'm going to start it this weekend. I might try and cut up some of the pieces and measure and try and understand the whole concept, you know. But I'll go grab it. I'll show it to you. Right, this is the pattern. And I bought with the kit all of the fabric and whatnot. So I'm gonna, because a friend of mine gifted me a sewing machine that they had two, you know, and this one she didn't use because, you know, she preferred, I guess, the feel and whatnot of her other one. So I have a new sewing machine. I've always kind of wanted to try quilting. So, because I've seen, you know, people, you know, at craft shows that my mom and I go to together, you know, and their quilts are amazing, and I would love to be able to do that. Also, you know, you could never have enough blankets, honestly. I've learned through this past couple weeks, because it's been really, really cold here in Wyoming, that blankets are the most wonderful invention on the earth, because I don't want to spend a lot of money on my heating bill because it can get super high in the winter. So instead of turning the dial up now, I'm using blankets. So I'm gonna quilt this first blanket. Will probably go to my mom, and if I like it, I might quilt my own quilt. We'll see. We'll see if I can figure it out. But anyway, that is also in the plans, maybe, depending on if I muster up the courage, I guess is the word, to try and figure this out. Anyway, yes, that is all I have to say. And I will see you guys in January, where the first Flosstube of the year will probably be delayed, because I'll be on the airplane, you know, during the first couple days of the year. But after I get home, I'll get myself set up to do a beginning of year whip parade, and that will be fun. So I will see you guys in January. Happy holidays, and enjoy your family time, if you are able to have it during the holidays, and stay warm. Bye.